Daf Yomi, Tractate Zevachim, page 48b. Top of the page with the words V'chi Mikan Ata Lama'ad. It's a question. The Gemara asks, and do you learn this halacha from here? V'halok kvar nemar b'makom asher tishachet ha'olah tishachet ha'chatas. Lama yatsa l'kvar lo makom she'im lo shkata b'tzafon pasul. Gemara asks, and do you learn this halakha from here? But isn't it already stated? Speak to Aaron and to his sons, saying, this is the law of the sin offering. In the place where the burnt offering is slaughtered, shall the sin offering be slaughtered before the Lord. It is most holy. Leviticus 6:18. If so, to what purpose was this singled out? Why did the Torah state explicitly that the sin offering of the king requires slaughter in the north? The Gemara answers to fix a place for it, that this is the only place where a sin offering may be slaughtered, teaching that if it was not slaughtered in the north of the temple courtyard, the offering is disqualified even after the fact. Ata omer lekach yatsa o ein ela sheze taun safon ve'ein acher taun safon Talmud loma v'shachat et hachatat b'makom ha'olam ze bena'av lechol chatos sheyuzen safon. The Gemara asks, do you say that it is singled out for this purpose to teach that even after the fact a sin offering slaughtered anywhere other than in the north is disqualified? Or perhaps it is only to teach that this goat sin offering requires slaughter in the north, but no other goat sin offering requires slaughter in the north? The Gemara answers, the verse states, and he shall place his hand upon the head of the sin offering and slaughter the sin offering in the place of the burnt offering. Leviticus 4:29. This established a paradigm for all sin offerings, teaching that they require slaughter in the north. Ashkechan seir nasi ben lemitzvah ben le'akev. The Gemara continues its explanation. We have found that the Torah writes with regard to the goat sin offering of a king that it requires slaughter in the north, both to perform the mitzvah in the optimal manner and to disqualify the offering even after the fact. We have also found with regard to the other sin offerings that the Torah states that to perform the mitzvah in the optimal manner, they must be slaughtered in the north of the temple courtyard. From where do we derive the halacha to disqualify other sin offerings if they were not slaughtered in the north? Dichtiv b'chizba uchsi b'si'iro. The Gemara explains, as it is written with regard to a lamb sin offering, that it must be slaughtered in the north, and slaughter the sin offering in the place of the burnt offering, Leviticus 4:33. And it is also written with regard to a she-goat, a sin offering, and he shall place his hand upon the head of the sin offering and slaughter it for a sin offering in the place of the burnt offering. Leviticus 4:29. This repetition teaches that a sin offering is disqualified if it is not slaughtered in the north. Having derived from these verses that all sin offerings are disqualified if they are slaughtered not in the north, the Gemara questions its earlier explanation. Rather, why do I need the term it stated with regard to the sin offering of a king in the verse, And he shall place his hand upon the head of a goat and slaughter it in the place where they slaughter the burnt offering before the Lord. It is a sin offering. Leviticus 4:24. Also b'tzafon ben nachshoin b'tzafon. The Gemara answers, it is required for that which is taught in a braita, it, meaning the goat, sin offering of a king, is slaughtered in the north of the tabernacle, but the goat offered by Nachshon and the other princes was not slaughtered in the north. Nachshon ben Aminadav was the prince of the tribe of Judah. He, along with the other tribes, princes of the tribes, brought offerings to inaugurate the altar and the tabernacle, as recorded in the Torah, Numbers chapter 7. Although the offerings were classified as sin offerings because they shared some characteristics of sin offerings, they were not brought to atone for any particular sin. Therefore, that's not what I remember Rashi saying. Rashi saying, if I remember correctly, that they were brought to atone for the sin of selling Joseph. So maybe they argue. Rashi is bringing it from a different source that argues with this Talmudic source, but that Rashi does say something like that. They were brought for the sin of Joseph. That's what I remember reading. Anyway, maybe I'm mistaken, but anyway, therefore, I hope I am. Therefore, the term it teaches that the offerings of the princes did not require slaughter in the north. Rabbi Shimon Omer, and the reason that it is necessary for the north to exclude Nachshon sin offering from the requirement of slaughter in the north is because it is taught in a braita. The verse states with regard to the sin offering of a king, and he shall place his hand upon the head of the goat and slaughter it in the place where they slaughter the burnt offering before the Lord. It is a sin offering. Leviticus 4:24. The verse could have stated upon its head. The reason it adds of the goat is to include the goat brought as a sin offering by Nachshon in the requirement of placing hands on the head of the offering. This is the statement of Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Shimon says the term of the goat serves to include the goats brought as sin offerings for communal idol worship in the requirement of placing hands on the head of an offering. So, the Gemara explains, it might enter your mind to say that since the sin offerings of the princes are included in the requirement of placing hands, they are also included in the requirement of being slaughtered in the north. Therefore, the term it teaches us that for the goat brought as a sin offering by Nachshon and the other princes, there was no requirement of slaughter in the north. Maskiv la Rabina, Maskiv la Rabina, Maskiv la Rabina, Maskiv la Rabina. Whoa, this is a long daf, man. Okay. Weiter. March on. Ravina objects to this interpretation. This works out well according to the opinion of Yehuda, who says that the offering of Nachshon required to place his hands on the head of the animal, but according to the opinion of Rabbi Shimon, what is there to say? Why should the Torah write the term it, since there is no reason to assume that it will require slaughter in the north? The son of Tavi, said to Ravina, and according to the opinion of Yehuda, does it work out well? Why is it necessary for the Torah to specifically exclude the offerings of the princes from the requirement of slaughter in the north? Why not say that For that which it was included, meaning placing hands on the head of the animal, it was included, and for that which it was not included, slaughtered in the north, it was not included. Ila tekra havimina tete bibinyan av. Im ken spricha gufa tete bibinyan av elamidos lo gamrinan hagadam midos lo gamrinan. And if you would say that if the verse does not exclude the offerings of the princes, I would say that one could derive the requirement for slaughter in the north via a paradigm from all other sin offerings. If so, one could also derive the requirement for placing hands on the head of an animal itself via the same paradigm. Rather, the reason that the requirement of placing hands cannot be derived via a paradigm is that we do not learn the requirements of the sin offering of Nachshon, which was only for the time of the inauguration of the tabernacle alone, from the requirement of sin offerings applicable to all generations. So too, the requirement of slaughter in the north cannot be derived via paradigm because we do not learn the requirements of the sin offering of Nachshon from the requirement of sin offerings applicable to all generations. Rather, the term it, stated with regard to the sin offering of a king, serves to teach that it must be slaughtered in the north of the temple courtyard, but the one who slaughters it does not need to stand in the north when he slaughters it. Shochet midrab achia nafka. Tanya Rabbi Achia Omer. The Gemara challenges the halacha of the one who slaughters the offering has already been derived from the statement of Rabbi Achia, as it is taught in the Braita. Rabbi Achia says, the verse states, with regard to the burnt offering, he shall slaughter it on the side of the altar northward before the Lord. Leviticus 1:11. Why must the verse state the exclusionary term it? If he if even Ma'abidah B'tzafon Pasul Yachon Al Zekein Tamud Lomar also B'tzafon Ve'ena Shochet B'tzafon. He explains, since we have found that the priest stands in the north and collects the blood from the neck of the animal in the north, and if he stood in the south and collected the blood in the north, the offering is disqualified. One might have thought that this is so also with regard to this one who slaughters the offering. Therefore, the verse states, and he shall slaughter it, to teach that it, the animal, must be in the north, but the one who slaughters it is not required to be standing in the north of the temple courtyard when he slaughters the animal. Therefore, the question must be addressed: what is derived from the exclusionary term "it," stated with regard to the sin offering of the king? Ela also b'tzafon ben of b'tzafon. Titani yachol yehe ben of ta'un tzafon v'dinhu. Uma ben son shelo kavalo kohen kavalo tzafon ben of shikavalo kohen eno din shikavalo tzafon. Talmud Lomar Otoho. The Gemara explains, rather the term it, stated with regard to the sin offering of a king, serves to teach that a goat brought as a sin offering must be slaughtered in the north, but a young bird brought as an offering does not need to be killed in the north. This is, as is taught in the Braita, one might have thought that a male bird requires pinching of the nape in the north of the temple courtyard, and this can be derived from a logical inference, just as a young sheep brought as a burnt offering is an offering for which the Torah did not fix that its slaughter must be performed by a priest, but nevertheless fixed that its slaughter must be in the north. With regard to a bird brought as an offering for which the Torah did fix that its killing must be performed by a priest, is it not logical that the Torah should also fix its slaughter in the north? Therefore, the verse states it to exclude a male bird from the requirement of being killed in the north. Ma lebenson. She can go locally. The Gemara questions the logical inference. One cannot derive the halacha of a bird offering from the halacha of a sheep offering, as what is notable about a young sheep offering. It is notable in that the Torah fixed the requirement that it be slaughtered with a utensil, meaning a knife. A bird, by contrast, is killed by the priest using his fingernail. Therefore, the term "it" cannot serve to counter this derivation. And also, the Gemara explains, rather, the term "it" stated with regard to sin offering of a king serves to teach that it, the goat of the king, is slaughtered in the north, but the paschal offering is not slaughtered in the north. The Tanya, Rabbi Eliezer and Yaakov Omer, Yochel Yeh Pesach Ton Sofon V'Dinhu Ma Oile Shekein Lo Kavalo Zman Shchitato Kavalo Tzafon Pesach Shekavalo Zman Shchitato Eino Din Shekavalo Tzafon Tamelo Mal Oso. As is taught in the Brayta, Rabbi Eliezer ben Yaakov says, one might have thought that a paschal offering requires slaughter to the north, and this can be arrived through a logical inference, just as a burnt offering is an offering for which the Torah did not fix a time for slaughter, but fixed that it requires slaughter in the north. With regard to a paschal offering, which the Torah did fix a time for a slaughter, as it must be slaughtered in the afternoon, only on the 14th day of Nisan, is it not logical that the Torah would fix that it must be slaughtered in the north? Therefore, the verse says "it" to exclude paschal offering from the requirement of slaughter in the north. Ma le'oila sheken kalil. Any more questions? This logical inference. One cannot derive the halacha of a paschal offering from the halacha of a burnt offering. What is notable about a burnt offering? It is notable in that the Torah teaches that it is entirely burned on the altar. This is not so with regard to the paschal offering. Mechatas, ma lechatas shein mechaperes al chayav pesos. The Gemara continues, if you would suggest logical inference from the halacha of a sin offering, which is not entirely burned upon the altar, in that way it is comparable to the sacrifice, paschal sacrifice offering, paschal offering upon the altar, but is slaughtered only in the north. This too can be refuted. As what is notable about a sin offering is notable in that it atones for those sins that render one liable for punishment karet, which is not so with regard to a paschal offering. Me'asham, maybe we'll learn from Asham. Me'asham Allah shekain kashim mikulanami shekain kashi. The Gemara continues, if you would suggest a logical inference from the halacha of a guilt offering, which is not entirely burnt, which does not atone for those sins punishable by karet, and which is slaughtered only in the north, this too can be refuted. As what is notable about a guilt offering is notable in that it has the status of an offering of the most sacred order, which is not so with regard to a paschal offering. The Gemara adds, having noted this distinction between a guilt offering and a paschal offering, one can say that for all of the three offerings as well, the halacha of a paschal offering cannot be derived from them, since they all have the status of offerings of the most sacred order. Le'oilam kedavar mikol esubetav meishay ubetav. ניגש לרבי אחיה להפקלן לעלומתי שור בטובן אלא אין שור בטובן אבל מקבל בצפון. The Gemara returns to the earlier inference. Actually, the term "it" teaches, as we said initially, meaning the animal must be standing in the north, but the one who slaughters the animal does not have to stand in the north. And that which is difficult for you, that we derive this halacha from the statement of Rabbi Achia, is in fact not difficult. The derivation from the term "it" is not to exclude one who slaughters from the requirement to slaughter the north, since the halacha is known already from the statement of Rabbi Achia. Rather, the derivation is that It is only one who slaughters the animal who does not have to stand in the north, but by inference, one who collects the blood from the neck of the animal must stand in the north. Mikabel milakach v'lakach nafka lakach lakach lo mashmalem. Nice. The Gemara questions the inference. The halacha that one who collects the blood from the neck of the animal must stand in the north is derived from the fact that the Torah could have written the priest shall take, and it said right, that the priest shall take, and the priest shall take. Leviticus 4:34, which may be read as he will take himself, like vayikach, v'lakach can also be read as lo yikach, himself, lo meaning lo lamed vav, to himself he will take, as explained in the previous Tana. The Gemara explains this Tana does not learn anything from this distinction between the priest shall take and the priest shall take. He does not agree with this derivation, and therefore he must derive the requirement to collect the blood while standing in the north from a different verse. The Gemara asks, we found a source for the requirement of slaughtering in the north with regard to a burnt offering in order to perform the mitzvah in the optimal manner. We also found a source for the requirement of collecting the blood while standing in the north in order to perform the mitzvah in the optimal manner. From where do we derive that slaughter and collection of the blood are disqualified if they are not performed in the north? Rabbi Ada bar Ahva says, and some say he was Rabbi bar Shila who says, it is derived from an a fortiori inference, from a kal v'chomer, just as the halacha that the slaughter and blood collection of a sin offering he performed in the north comes by virtue of a comparison to the halacha of a burnt offering, as the verse states, and slaughter the sin offering in the place of the burnt offering. Leviticus 4:29. Yet, if the animal was not slaughtered or its blood was not collected in the north, it disqualifies the offering with regard to the burnt offering itself, as the halacha that the slaughter and blood and collection of a sin offering be in the north comes by virtue of it. Is it not logical that if it were not slaughtered or its blood were not collected in the north, this should disqualify the offering? The Gemara rejects this logical inference. What is notable about sin offering? It is notable in that it atones for those sins that render one liable for punishment by karen, which is not so with regard to a burnt offering. Ravina said this is what is difficult for Rav Ada bar Ahva. In other words, regardless of the notable characteristic of a sin offering, he still is of the opinion that his logical inference stands. Have we ever found that a secondary prohibition is more stringent than a primary prohibition? Since the halacha of a sin offering is derived via a comparison to the halacha of a burnt offering, the former cannot have stringencies that the latter lacks. Amar le Marzutra b'rei drav Mari Lavina Villa Marzutra, the son of Mari, said to Ravina, but have we not found a secondary prohibition that is more stringent than a primary one?